Now let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Rex Rogosh, and let's clear up trans rights. New study reveals shocking results on the trans community over Donald Trump. Even before any executive orders were signed in January, our court rulings delivered. Fear was already spreading fast through transgender communities across the U.S. Now, a new study from the University of Vermont, published in JAMA Network Open, has confirmed just how deep the fears run. The study, titled Access to Gender-Affirming Care and Alternatives to that Care Among Transgender Adults, surveyed 489 transgender, non-binary, and intersex people. Every single respondent said they believed they could lose access to gender-affirming care under the changing political climate, especially under Donald Trump. The survey was conducted between the 2024 election and Inauguration Day in 2025. More than 1 in 5 participants, over 21%, said they would feel suicidal if they lost access to gender-affirming care. Author Teresa Graziano recalled one respondent who said, quote, "Killing myself is easier than living without my hormones and my gender-affirming care," end quote. Even more troubling, nearly a third said they would turn to black market hormones or try to make their own at home if medical options disappeared. While there's no federal ban yet on adult access to care, the Supreme Court's recent decision in Skrmetti upholding Tennessee's ban on care for minors has only increased fears that more states will follow suit. Advocates nationwide say the Vermont study mirrors broader realities. A spokesperson from Advocates for Trans Equality told The Advocate, quote, "Trump's policies have consequences. All of us are less healthy and less safe, and many trans people will die without transition-related care they need," end quote. Representative Becca Ballant, Vermont's first out lesbian member of Congress, said, quote, "The data mirrors what I am hearing directly from trans, non-binary, gender non-conforming folks, intersex people in Vermont and their families," end quote. She is shocked that the statistics show over 20% would consider taking their own lives, but said it isn't surprising given the political messaging over the past 2 years. Balint draws a powerful parallel between transgender health care access and reproductive freedom, saying, quote, "It's the same thing. You're talking about people having control over their own bodies," end quote. For many in the trans community, the message is clear. Their lives, health, and future are on the line. This story, I can't even put into words. It's heartbreaking. As many of you know, I founded a nonprofit for mental health and mental health advocacy. And to hear that people would rather take their lives than lose affirming care is unimaginable and unfathomable. And the quote in there that we are talking about people having control over their own bodies is, I think, the crucial part there. You know, the government is stepping in and saying what you can and can't do to your body. So first it was reproductive rights, and now it's gender-affirming care. You know, what is next? And it's sad to me that as a community at large, just not the LGBT community, but as a community at large, as the United States of America, we are allowing this to happen. We are allowing our neighbors, our family members to be minimalized and marginalized and put in a position that they are actually thinking about taking their own lives because they can't live their authentic true self.
It's horrible. And the other thing that you hear is that they're taking it in their own hands. They're doing stuff on the black market, and that's only going to perpetuate, healthcare costs and challenges and complications. So it's only going to put more stress on an already stressed out healthcare system. But to your point, just coming out as a gay man, the journey it takes, to be able to accept yourself. I couldn't imagine being a man who wants to be or needs to be a woman and not being able to become my true self, or to stop treatment in the middle of treatment. So it doesn't surprise me that 1 out of 5 people are considering taking their lives. And we need to really hear that.
Yes, and it's very real. As someone who works, creatively outside my 9-to-5 job with people in the trans community, recently had an experience where someone had not used the healthcare system in probably 10 or 15 years, And luckily I knew some resources, but sometimes, there's old experiences, and that's what this person, she was haunted by. And I reassured her, I sent her some links, one of our advocates that we very much celebrate with some of our anchors here, Holy Cross, was that resource for her, but many years ago had a different experience. So it's very, very important. I also have to ask the question, with the government trying to infringe on, our freedoms, especially in the trans community, you look at people who are born intersex. How are they going to deal with that? There was a time in the 50s and 60s where people just made decisions for people, and it wasn't allowed to be that person's choice ultimately when they came of age. So there's a lot to discuss on that as well.
I think there's always been marginalized communities that have not been able to access healthcare and who have taken it in their own hands to access on the streets these hormones,
Yes.
injections, things that maybe feminize their appearance, that have had detrimental effects to their health. They're in our community here in South Florida. We have some transgender elders that speak to the community. And they've talked a lot about their experience with some of these substances on the street that promised to do one thing and perhaps did another to their health. And, it's very scary. I think that gender-affirming care is going to stop for the people that absolutely need it as a lifeline? No, because they're going to access it through illegal channels.
Or they're going to commit suicide.
I think that the will to survive is very strong, and I think that people are going to access it how they're going to access it.
Well, there's a black market for everything.
There is.
There are people who I know go out of our country for less expensive dental care, and it might be not necessarily what we're talking about, but because it's more accessible financially in these times, and but there's no regulation.
Yeah, I think what's happening is an absolute shame that the party of small government is the party of small government when it comes to millionaires and billionaires. They want to completely take their hands off of a millionaire's bank account, but they want to completely put their hands on a woman's reproductive choices, on a person's right to choose how they want to express their gender, their sexuality. It's really scary times that we're living in. I would recommend that everybody check out, The Handmaid's Tale. It's really not that, it seems like it seems like a fabrication, but, I believe it was Margaret Atwood who wrote that. She said that nothing that she put in that book, I believe it was a series of books actually, she said nothing that she wrote was taken from her imagination. Everything that was written in there was based on something that came from from historical events that had happened previously.
Well, I would like to believe that the will to survive is more prevalent. Unfortunately, going to the black market, I have some friends, close friends, who are trans elders, and they were part of that situation where they were injecting silicone and those types of things into their body, and they're having major health repercussions in their older age now. But unfortunately, as someone who is a suicide survivor and has attempted suicide and been hospitalized for it, sometimes despair and the fact that, especially our trans community feels so marginalized, and we've talked about, they're afraid to go to doctors because they don't know how they're going to be treated.
Sure.
They're afraid to go outside because they don't know how they're going to be treated. They're afraid of the cops, and they're afraid of government. So, when your back is up against the wall, sometimes, unfortunately, the black market isn't your answer.
Or you can't afford it.
Or you can't afford it, or you have to do illegal things to get it. And this also is putting our healthcare system in a quandary because they take a Hippocratic oath. But now doctors are like, I want to treat you. I need to treat you. You need to be treated. But unfortunately, I could get sued. The hospital could get closed just by me acting on it. So now you're putting, not only the life of that person who needs the help in danger, you're now putting a system in danger that's helping hundreds of thousands of millions of other people.
Yeah.
So it is this slippery slope. We've talked about it before on this program. When we were talking about the gender-affirming care for youth, and I happen to be part of that, and I said the same thing then. I said this is going to be a slippery slope because there are people who need gender-affirming care because it's medically needed. It's not because somebody came to them and said, you know what, I'm electing to do this. Sometimes it's needed. You were talking about intersex people. So there's so many facets of this that need to be talked about and explored, and it's not a black and white answer. The only black and white answer is that the government should not be telling us what we should be doing with our body.
I agree.
End story.
Totally agreed.
And if you are somebody watching this and you are in a situation where you feel hopeless or helpless, please pick up the phone and call. And if you don't know who to call, dial 988. And that is our big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.